Wonderful. Well, hello and welcome, everybody. I am Sabina Zafar, City Council member with the City of San Ramon, and today I welcome my fellow elected Pakistani American elected and the mayor of the City of Irvine, Farrah N. Really excited to have this conversation, but I do want to kick off by thanking Park Lounge for really creating this community and giving us this space to connect today. And I also want to thank GIK Alum Association, Open USA in Ijad Lab for making this forum possible. So with that, I think we'll kick off. I do want to start off by giving also a shout out to Ali Fahad for really bringing us all together, pulling this and making this an amazing community of Pakistanis, both here in the US, the UK, I know it's global actually, and connecting us to Pakistanis in Pakistan. I've really enjoyed seeing this forum grow and the amazing things that are happening as part of Park Lounge and the community we're building. So I want to start off by introducing the amazing Mayor Farah N. Mayor Farah N is obviously a great friend, but she is also the first the first ever elected City Council person of color to be elected to the Irvine City Council. Farah is a mother of 2 boys. She was first elected to Irvine City Council in 2018 with the highest votes among 12 candidates and is the first woman of color to be elected to the council. She's a small business owner and a recruitment consultant. Prior to that, Farah served 8 years as a regulatory affairs manager for a biotech company in Emerald, California. And for 4 years, from 2015 to 2019, she served as the executive director for a local nonprofit in Newport Mesa, Irvine Interfaith Council, where she worked with the local faith communities and other nonprofits to tackle issues like homelessness and human trafficking while promoting peace and understanding. Farah grew up in San Francisco Bay Area and is a graduate of UC Davis and moved to Irvine in 2004. Her boys attended Irvine Public School since kindergarten, with one still in high school. She and her husband are also legacy partners with the Irvine Public School Foundation. She proudly served 3 terms as PTA president at her son's elementary school, PTA board member at the middle school, and served on the school site council at the high school. Farah has worked extensively with many community organizations in Irvine and Orange County. She has served on the steering committee for the Irvine Global Village Festival, is a CERT Community Emergency Response Team volunteer with the Irvine Police Department, an active member of the Irvine Rotary Club. Farah was appointed as a Community Services Commissioner in 2014, where she took the time to get to know the city parks, open spaces, land development, amenities, and employees. Farah has received numerous awards and recognitions throughout the years, which is a testament to her commitment to service. She was also awarded the Community Service Leader Award from the Orange County Human Relations Commission. Building bridges and bringing communities together is a priority for her, as is making sure Irvine is environmentally and economically sustainable for years to come. What an amazing, impressive background, Farah. And just a true testament to you really work towards what you're now owning and running, and the mayor of one of the largest cities in the US. And somebody which is being looked at by, not just the Pakistanis, but at large by US organizations, as Irvine being a leader in many, in many domains. So with that, I want to hand it over to you and just say thank you for joining us. And why don't you kick us off and tell us how you got here, what your journey has been, and what has it taken you, and what are you doing now?
Thank you, Sabina. It's such an honor to be here with everyone, and especially nice to be here with you because you and I have been on this path when it comes to politics, and it's so good to see you leading the way in San Ramon. I think you're doing amazing things. And so it's so important for us to recognize the work that, Pakistani Americans bring to the table. For me, I wasn't really ever planning on being in front of politics. I always like doing behind the scenes work. Ever since my kids were little and in strollers, we would be out, going door to door, dropping off pamphlets for other candidates. It wasn't until 2014 where, I was working on a local campaign and things started, there was discussions happening about, diversity on the council, because at that time, Irvine had no person of any other ethnic background on the council. And so I jokingly had said, well, maybe I should run for council. And the response that I got from the politicals at that time was just astonishing. It was like, oh, wait, I don't think, Irvine is ready for so much diversity in leadership. And, oh, with a name like yours, you're pretty much unelectable. And so that got me thinking, like, it was 2014, and how is it possible that people are having such conversations that don't make sense to me? And like, what are we setting up for our next generation? Are they going to be hearing the same things? Is this going to be a cycle that we continue to see over and over again? So at that time, I was like, all right, you know what? Maybe I will run, and just to see what happens. And so I ran for the first time in 2016. As totally a new person in the face of the political scene, and didn't make it. I actually lost. I came in fourth out of 11 candidates that year, but it got me to a spot where people started recognizing who I was and why I just was barely not making it that year. And so in 2018, I ran again, learning from the lessons that I learned in 2016, making sure I wasn't making the same mistakes that I made in 2016, and actually came in first out of 12 candidates. And, serving my first term on the council, it was a 4-year term, but a year and a half into it, again, we had a mayor that just didn't understand the community, didn't connect with the community's needs. And we were facing not only the pandemic, but also social injustice issues. With the BLM protests and so much more going on. And her response to things just didn't resonate well with me. When students at UC Irvine were reaching out saying that they were having a hard time paying their rent because of the pandemic and losing their jobs, her response was, why don't you go out and find a job at Amazon? When social injustice issues were spiking up in our city and around our neighboring cities, she basically was like, if you don't like the city, if you don't like my city, you can find another city to live in. So, when someone speaks in that manner, it's not someone that understands the community. And so I kept asking around, like, can someone challenge this woman? She's been in office for 26 years. No one has ever defeated her. And everyone was like, no, we're not going to do it. And so I was like, I just cannot have her run unopposed. And so I had a safe seat. So even if I lost, I still had my council seat. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it my all. And it was a rushed decision. And we only had about 5.5 months to campaign in. And as a city as large as ours, it was quite difficult, especially during the pandemic, because everything was shut down. People didn't want to open their doors. But at the same time, we had a very strong message that was countering hers, and really reaching out to folks, letting them know that they would see a change in government when we came into office. And it was unbelievable on election night that we actually beat her by almost 15,000 votes. And so it just tells you that the community, when the community is ready for change, they will come out and they will support. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you look like, what your name is, it matters what you do. And so with that, I'm excited about all the work we're doing in Irvine. One of the first things I did was start up a COVID-19 task force and a business reopening task force, both of them working side by side, making sure we were keeping our community safe, making sure we had plenty of testing going on. And then the vaccine rollout was amazing, which really led to our city in all of Orange County having the lowest COVID rates and the highest vaccination rates right now. I think throughout California, we're at about 60%, maybe, if I'm right. I don't know, Sabina, correct me, for California's vaccination rates. And in our city, we're almost at 70%. And so, it had a lot to do with the COVID-19 task force in our local hospitals, helping out in numerous ways. And at the same time, with our business reopening task force, making sure all our businesses were in line with the guidelines that kept changing, and making sure that everyone was doing things the way we wanted them to do it in conjunction with the city's guidelines. And so that really helped us in the long term. Where now we're actually reopening, and my newest task force is the the tech task force, and we're looking at not only bringing our tech companies together to talk about what the next vision will be for Irvine, but at the same time, we're actually envisioning an innovation museum where we'll have hands-on activities for our youth and really empower minorities to get into tech and to succeed. Make sure that we have the capital investors ready, and make sure that we have those startup opportunities available in our city to make Irvine that hub of innovation. And so that's pretty exciting. So I'll stop right there and see what else you'd like to hear.
That is awesome. One of my first committees that I formed was also the Innovation and Technology Advisory Committee. And so, yeah, maybe we could be sister cities in innovation.
Absolutely.
And technology.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. No, amazing work you've done. And just, I think some of the things I want to talk about is, why is it so important for us to be part of civic engagement, to be part of public service? We generally, a lot of times, Pakistanis, especially first generation Pakistanis, empower and enable our kids to work in an industry which will pay back good dividends, right? Engineering, technology, medicine, and civic service is still very new and upcoming. And why is that important? Why is it so essential to be involved in the policy making?
Well, I think, Sabina, you know this saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And a lot of times for our communities, that's what's been happening. So we're not at the decision-making table. We're not the ones building the policy. When policies get built, we're being left behind. Most recently, we had the ethnic studies component that was being built throughout the state. And while some communities that had someone at the state level were able to get their input in, so that we had Korean studies, we have Chinese studies, we have Indian studies, Pakistanis were left behind, right? We didn't have that opportunity. And by the time we found out, it was a little too late. So we did set up a curriculum with some of our amazing professors out here. But at the same time, we're still pushing to make sure that that's included. And right now it's not going to be included. It'll be up to individual districts to decide whether they want to add that in or not. And so that's why, little things like that to bigger things that happen at the state and federal level, especially at the local level as well, are important for you to have good representation. Because if you don't, you're the community that gets left out of everything. And we're seeing a lot of push when it comes to APIs getting elected. But within those APIs, we need to make sure that we get Pakistanis elected as well.
And for this forum, can you say what APIs mean?
Oh, absolutely. Asian Pacific Islander.
Yeah, I know we use this pretty commonly and we live this world, but I'd imagine, people from Pakistan may not be aware of this. And why is it important, right? That representation, I know we hear the first person of color, the first person, to be elected, first generation immigrant. There are challenges, right? And why do you need to own that and express that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's really important because you're changing the dynamic of what people see when they think of leadership, right? So I'll share with you, like my first months on the job as mayor, we were at an event with one of my council members, a male counterpart, white man, and people walked up to him and they were like, "Oh, are you the mayor?" And he was like, "No, she is." And so, we want to change that concept. It's not the white man anymore in a suit that's in leadership. It's people of all backgrounds that can be in leadership. And so having those positions open to a diverse, qualified pool of people is important, because we have to change that concept that's in people's heads, that leadership doesn't look one way, it can look many different ways.
Yeah, and as a mayor, you're very much the face of the community, kind of the figurehead, right? Where people connect and recognize you at events and meetings and things. And I'm sure you bring along with you your, own group of people that may not have approached, the former mayor or approached another council member because they were just uncomfortable or didn't have that direct line. So opening up to a whole
Absolutely.
group of people. Yeah.
Absolutely. What, on that note, I just want to add that when I came into office, the amount of meeting requests and the amount of phone calls that I got from community members on a variety of issues was so tremendous that our staff was like, basically, we're having to schedule things, multiple times on days and squeeze people in because there just wasn't that opportunity before. There wasn't that kind of outreach, and it goes both ways, right? So the community might reach out to you, but when you're out there letting them know, hey, here's my number. If you are facing any difficulties in the city, reach out to me. I'm here for you. Then it gives them that opportunity to actually believe it, where it hasn't been done before.
And your role even though Irvine is not a small city, I believe it's not a full-time job, right? It's still community service. I would love, because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that with a full-time job and a full-time commitment, you are actually doing this as part of community service. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about, what the day in the life of a mayor look like, and how do you manage it with something you probably have full-time, and talk about that.
It's a long day, I'll tell you. My days normally starts at about 7 a.m. and ends at about 1 a.m. And in between, I'll try to take a day or two off if I can. But even like on a weekend today, I'm doing this event, and then right after this, I've got a police and fire open house event to go to, and then in the evening, we've got our movie night. So even on the weekends, there are different events that I have to be at. But on a typical day, it's making sure I'm following up on emails, making sure I'm calling people back, working on policies. Right now, we've got so much going on from the state funding that's coming through our cities. We've got our RENA, which is our regional housing assessment work that's being done, really looking at how we're going to develop and build the amount of homes that we're required to build. And at the same time, people reach out, they want to do beekeeping in the city. We've never had beekeeping before. So now we're researching and building that ordinance out. And then in between, you've got events. You've got communities that want you at every event possible. You've got ribbon cuttings and things like that. And it's really difficult. And, I'll tell you that in between my work as a mayor and my job that I do to earn a living, it's the time that you have to spend working at both and raising a family. It just basically is a juggling act. So it's making sure that you're doing everything you possibly can in the time that you have available. And like I said, once, everyone's in bed and sleeping, I'm there answering emails and following up on things that I need to work on for the next day. So it's definitely a tough job to do, but I really enjoy the community aspect of it, because at the end of the day, when you make a difference in someone's life, it's just so rewarding. For me, if I can help someone, get through a hard time that they're going through, really, it's what it's all about. So, mayors have their perks. We have our fun times, but it's definitely a hard job. And it's definitely a job that you have to juggle with your regular job and your family life and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, and I did want to highlight that. I think you already answered my question, but I was going to ask you, what drives you to put in all this hard work, give up your life, kind of sometimes at the cost of your family and time and your sleep as well.
Yeah. And I think that happened with the shift from me going from corporate to nonprofit. Being at a corporate job as a regulatory affairs manager was a totally different setting. It was like, you work, you're earning your money, you're climbing that ladder. But then when I shifted my career into nonprofit, and when I became the executive director of a local nonprofit, it really shifted my way of thinking towards community. And really that's where it all started is, there are so many needs within the community that need to be fulfilled. And just even working on one issue at a time makes such a huge difference.
So I do have some questions in the chat. I'll start with the first one, which is, what are the biggest challenges facing Irvine today? Do you get help and support from other California cities?
Yeah, well, in Irvine right now is us getting out of the pandemic, right? Reopening, making sure that we're still keeping everyone safe. There's a lot of building going on, a lot of development. We're still building out the great park. And so, there's going to be a lot of effort in that area. And at the same time, it's, kind of educating the community that doesn't want any more homes in Irvine and kind of letting them know why it's important to have that development and expand the businesses for a city to grow. And then when it comes to help within Orange County with other cities, there's a lot of times where, I'm working regionally with my neighboring cities on a multitude of issues. During the pandemic, we have certain farm areas within our city, and Santa Ana had a great program to vaccinate farm workers. And so I reached out to the mayor there, and we teamed up making sure that all of our farm workers were vaccinated as well. So there are many issues where we do overlap and work together.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the California League of Cities, which is a statewide, basically organization which brings together all the California, 480 cities. And I know at the conferences we cross paths, we serve on some of those boards as well. And I think as a collective of California cities, we get to work together. We now have 7 or 8 electeds that are of Pakistani descent serving in our councils and as mayors and as council members. So that partnership, that WhatsApp group is,
yes,
really very helpful, because we are able to tap into each other's network. We're able to help each other out, answer some of the questions, because, as I hear you, we're dealing with the same issues. So RENA is a good one, which is a regional housing and planning number that every city gets. I don't know what your number for the next 8 years is. Ours
it's
is like
23,000.
Yeah, ours is 5,500. And it's like, where do we put these houses?
Right.
And state mandates us. And then there's laws like SB 330, which,
yes.
The residents of San Ramon and Irvine, if they're listening, some of those are just very strict and overlay the city government in a lot of ways. So it's kind of, we're playing both sides. We're trying to make sure we're representing our residents, and
yes.
we're also making sure we're advocating for it at the state level. So it's certainly, a very balancing act, and especially at the city level, when you have the county, when you have the state overlaying a lot of your decisions, it is a balancing act.
It is, and it's a very delicate situation, because, there's so much that we want to get from the state at the same time. And they've got their mandate. So it's kind of like that delicate dance you do to like get a little bit and give a little bit and make sure you don't upset anyone, because you don't want them coming down hard on you either.
Yeah. So I have a question from one of your residents. He's saying, I'm concerned, does not the position of mayor of Irvine mandate you full-time and pay you for that?
No,
I'm sure people will be
stipend.
Surprised to hear your stipend.
I know, $850 a month is what I get. Yeah. And it's not a full-time position. I think my staff members make a lot more than I do.
Yeah. People are always surprised to hear that, but that's why I said this is something that really is in so many ways volunteer. Probably that 800 goes towards your gas as you're driving through,
yes.
and attending all these events.
Yeah.
Another question is, do you have a mentorship program for up and coming ambitious youth in our community who want to make a difference like yourself?
Absolutely. We always have an ongoing internship program. And so a lot of folks have gone through, like high school and college, have come through where they actually get hands-on opportunity to not only work on ordinances, work on policy, but also work with community relations. So this summer, finally after COVID, we're going to kick off our summer internship program. And it's been amazing. I've got like 50 applicants, and I'm supposed to dwindle it down to 5 or 6. But we're trying to find a way to get all 50 of them involved in one way or another. And that's really, really important. My staffers, I'll share, when I first got elected in 2018, I had 2 young women that were working on my campaign. And so very outgoing. One was from UC Santa Barbara, but she lived in Irvine, and one was at UC Irvine. And both of them were just amazing. Like, you have a group of volunteers and there's a couple that just stand out. And so when I got elected, I reached out to both of them and I said, hey, I'd love to have you working with me on my staff. And so when they joined in 2018, it's 2021 right now. And the bittersweet moment has come to realization where, you mentor someone because you want them to grow and exceed and move on. And that's what's happening with them. One actually has a fellowship in DC that she's going to be moving to in September. So I'm really, really excited about her fellowship, but also very sad that I lose her now. And the other one ended up going to UC Berkeley for law school. And so, that's the job that we have, is not only just running our city, but kind of opening those doors for others and provide them with those opportunities to exceed as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, right, it's a commitment you do it on a personal level. It's not everybody does it. I'm starting a summer internship program similarly with high schoolers, and I had somebody who volunteered on my campaign and managed my interns. And I said, can you come and manage this for me? Because it is getting a little crazy. So it is continuing to build that bench and build that bench.
Absolutely.
Another question I have is, what could be potential areas of cooperation for startups from Pakistan and Irvine, and how can we start this?
Well, I think it just starts with a conversation on what are the interests of potential startups that are in Pakistan, and what we have available in the city, and kind of finding those match availabilities. So really, I encourage you, and I'll put my email in the chat later on, but reach out to me, let me know what you're interested in, and let's see where we can take it.
Wonderful. Another question is, how can Pakistani Americans be encouraged to participate more actively in politics and run for office?
I think one of the best ways is what you guys are doing right now, tuning in, listening to Sabina and myself, understanding the needs, and then really encouraging the next generation of folks to look into, not just running for office, but getting involved at the policy level as well. There's so many different opportunities. We're seeing a few Pakistanis that are being appointed in the Biden administration, and that's important. We want to make sure that we continue expanding on that because definitely we haven't seen the type of numbers we'd like to see of appointees. So we definitely need to grow there. We need to make sure that we're growing at the state level, the council level, Board of Education, your school boards. Those are all important seats to have. And so really it's about having these conversations and encouraging others to do it.
Yeah, and Farah, I read your bio, right? And you didn't get here from nowhere. You've been working, you've been kind of building towards this for a very, very long time. And, we've volunteered in our communities beyond the PTA. Sometimes I felt such a lack of, our community members, Pakistani Americans, the PTA. It was generally people, a lot of white moms that were participating in that. And so we have to, nothing is too small for us to get started somewhere. Sometimes I see, Pakistanis will decide, okay, we want to run. I've heard this. People tell me how inspired they are by my journey and they're going to run for Congress. I'm like, no, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't work like that.
But we've seen people fail, right? We've seen so many Pakistanis try to run for Congress. They came out of nowhere. Nobody knows who they are. And then they fail and they disappear. And that's what we don't want happening. We really want to build a strong pipeline of people that are going to, make their way to different offices, but do it in a way where they're building those relationships. You have to have a relationship with the party, no matter which party you're with, but you've got to have that relationship with them. You've got to understand labor. You've got to understand all these different organizations that are out there, whether it's women's groups or environmental groups.
Yeah.
If you don't have these relationships already built, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And one of the things is, right, there are so many community organizations in your city, right? You said the women's organization, there's, your Rotary clubs, those are pockets of, where you can really start getting involved, being part of that community and come out of that. So I do want to talk about Emerge California because we're both graduates of the Emerge California program. And tell me how you got connected with Emerge California, and maybe talk about what Emerge California is, because I think it's an important pipeline. And now we have some of the biggest names in California that are graduates of Emerge.
Yeah, I remember meeting Kimberly Ellis, who was the executive director of Emerge a while back, and I can't remember if this was around 2014 or 2015. I was actually at an event by New American Leaders with SAIU, and this is an East Coast organization that was coming out to the West Coast. And in the audience was Kimberly, and after we had our first few discussions, she came up to me and she was like, I need you to join Emerge. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And so we started communicating and learning more about it. It's basically an organization that trains Democratic women to run for office. And it's a wonderful program because it's setting you up to build this, be a part of this network of women and even some men that are going to support you and guide you and help you in making those right decisions when you're campaigning. And so it's helped me a lot. I know, Sabina, I'm not sure, I was in the 2016 program. What year were you in?
I was in the 2015 program.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, but I mean, like, it's a wonderful opportunity to learn what the tools are that you're going to need when campaigning.
Yeah, and it's a big support system, right? So my experience was as a first generation immigrant, the nuances of politics, right? It's of running a campaign. There's logistics, there's financing, there's all those things. And then you are around like-minded women like yourself, and you're like, yeah, she can do it, I can do it. So now the mayor of Irvine is an Emerge graduate, the mayor of San Francisco, the mayor of Oakland. So we have some very powerful women that came out of the Emerge program that are, running some of our largest cities. So I think that network has always been very helpful and supportive, and I'm grateful for that. And I know that's, I think, kind of how we met first as well, because somebody said,
I think so.
Oh, there's an Emerge person in Southern California as well, and she's of Pakistani descent. Have you met her? And I'm like, no, I want you to connect me with her. So yeah, I think that's how we first connected. So there's another question about mid-career professionals. Do you have any program for mid-career professionals? How about political careers? And by the way, we have Juneteenth holiday at UC Irvine.
All right. So, political careers, like for myself, I started off in regulatory affairs, kind of converted over to nonprofit, and then stumbled into politics. So there's never a time limit on when someone can get involved. I think it just depends on what your interests are, and again, building those community relations. So if you are interested in politics, if you're thinking about being elected, don't think of it as a career, because it's really not. More on the career side would be policy. So staff that are working, whether you're chief of staff or you've got policy background, that's definitely a plus. But again, there's no time limit on when to get involved. I just say that, if you feel it within you that you want to give back to your community, then that's the time that you get started. And as far as Juneteenth goes, we actually had our first proclamation for Juneteenth this year by the City of Irvine, which I was able to present to the NAACP.
Awesome. So another question from one of your residents is, I have launched a startup in Irvine and named it after Irvine, Irvine!com. Are there trade fairs in the city where we can present it? And can you help to incubate it at UC Irvine campus?
So the UC Irvine Incubation Center is mainly for those that are involved in UC Irvine. So whether it's students at any level, graduate or undergraduate. So you have to have some sort of a commitment with UC Irvine in order to work with them. However, we do have, I'm trying to think of the name right now, Octane. It's an incubation center in the city. I would reach out to them and see what opportunities they have available. And as far as trade fairs go, the Irvine Chamber of Commerce puts on many different opportunities for folks to get together and present their projects, I would really reach out to them to see when their next opportunity is coming up.
Okay. So the other question is, just to be part of a bigger group, it may make sense if Pakistani Americans can form stronger links with the overall API community. How can that happen?
Okay, let's see.
So how do we connect with the
Yeah,
larger
absolutely. I mean,
API
you know,
community?
for me, and I'm sure Sabina, you as well, you know, when it comes to not only our party, we're connected with the API caucus, but as with the League of California Cities has an API caucus as well that we are a part of. So I would say that, you know, from our perspective, we are very much involved with the API community, especially recently when we saw a rise in the Asian hate throughout the US. It was really important for us to have those relationships to help our community members out. But I think it again comes from individuals getting more involved.
Yeah, and I'm a board member of APAPA, which is the Asian American Political Alliance. And their ask is always, you know, how can we get the Pakistani community and the Muslim community more involved? You know, I've been on parades, you know, Chinese New Year parades and things like that. And there's always an ask. So, you know, I think one of the things is from your end as well, just reach out to us, step up. I know we're always looking for more volunteers to help,
Yes.
you know, kind of expand that influence. And so, you know, we could use all the help, you know, and your interest. And there's always an opportunity to form something which will expand our what we're doing and have a much greater influence on the larger community. So yeah, feel free
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
reach
You
out.
know, and one thing I'll add to that is a lot of people think that, you know, having these relationships really is just a one-time deal. It takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time. So, you know, when we're talking about having more Pakistanis get involved in API communities or more Pakistanis getting involved in politics, you have to be ready to commit to that time as well. This is not something that happens overnight. It takes time. You've got to build those trusting relationships. You've got to build on those relationships. And so there is a time commitment. And I think that's sometimes lacking in our community is being able to provide that time commitment.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people have told me that they're very interested in running for council, and I've made them part of a communications committee and had them, you know, I'm like apply to different committees and commissions on our city. And what I see is some people will persist and will, you know, will continue to serve, but there are people that after doing that realize this is not for them. So that's also a good gauge, you know, serving on a committee or a commission or some sort of a board to see, do you really have that time commitment to give, you know, because it's all of it, it's a lot of work. And it's a great way to get on a committee and learn about the ropes. So another question I have is, I'm looking to put together a tech town in Sindh, Pakistan. Would love to see if we have synergies. Maybe that's something you take back and, you know,
Yeah, that
think
would be
about.
great. I'd love to talk to you more about it. You know, and anywhere we can share ideas and build those bridges and support, I am all for it. You know, I've done the same for many cities in Japan, in Korea, and Taiwan. And so if you have an idea for Pakistan, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help out.
Yeah. So another question is, do women in politics have a hard time getting recognition? Any advice for future female leaders?
You know, it varies. You know, it depends on the individual that you're dealing with, and so sometimes you just have to put yourself out there even more. I say the only advice I have for future female leaders is just hold your ground and be yourself. Don't get pushed aside for anything. There are times when, you know, things are easy and you get recognized, and I've had my share of those. But there are times when you really have to step up and let people know who you are. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, and I'd imagine you have a similar challenge as me. Sometimes we look too young to be in the driving seat. And so, you know, we kind of have to just, you know, make sure that our presence is felt and, you know, people don't take us as a staffer. And like
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, right? The image of mayor is a
Yeah.
suited white man, which is you're breaking that image and showing a mayor looks like you. And so yeah, I think sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes it's actually also good, because it certainly changes people's perspectives, and
Yes.
that's what some of the things you're trying to break. And just future female leaders, what I like to say is, we're constantly told to become something we're not. Owning who you are, and I think we go through the struggle of getting to that point, but owning who you are, coming as your authentic self, is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. You don't have to look like a typical image of this is what a mayor looks like. If you
Right.
want to dress a way that you own, you want to show up a way that you own, and I think you'll make it. um, Somebody asked, how can they reach Farah? They voted for you. I think you're just out there at every social media, and obviously your email and your website. But I know you said you would also share your information in the chat as well. But I think if you go to the City of Irvine's website, your information is probably there. They can reach you through that, through your social media channels. So those were some of the there. So Farah is dropping some of those handles in the chat as well. She's very approachable. I know that. So Farah, anything else you would like to share? I think as we're wrapping this up as well.
Yeah, I think I saw in the chat, someone had asked, what is the most fun part of being a mayor? And I think the most fun part is just being with the community. So yesterday I was able to be at a senior facility where they were holding an appreciation luncheon, and just hearing the stories from them and checking out their amazing cars that, they're old classic cars that they've just taken such good care of, and they did a little parade around their area. Those are the fun parts. Just being there for the community, letting them know that we're approachable and we're going to be there for them. And then the second part of the question was, what is the toughest part of being a mayor? And that is really making those hard decisions that some people just don't like, but that they're best for the community. And so I always say I can't please everyone all the time. And there's no way that I'm going to be 100% agreeable for people 100% of the time. But people need to understand that it's important for them to know that whatever decisions I do make are really looking at the majority of folks and what we can do to benefit them.
So earlier you mentioned, obviously, that you have your election coming up again in 2022.
Yes.
How can the Pakistani community help you? You need a community, you need a lot of people, it's a lot of hard work, and now you will be wearing 3 hats. One, your full-time job, second, as a mayor, and third, as a candidate. Where can the Pakistani American community have the most impact, and what is your ask?
Well, there's 3 things that I think every campaign needs, and it's money, it's volunteers, and it's votes. So if you're able to contribute, we can definitely use that funding to help us get the message out. If you're able to volunteer, we definitely need volunteers all the time. And if you know of people in Irvine, get them to vote. At the end of the day, it's the votes that matter, and that's what gets us elected. So those are the 3 things. Whichever one fits you, that's what I'll take.
Thank you for sharing that. And you put in all the hard work. And I think, as people want to get involved, campaigns are an amazing way to get firsthand experience on how to run for office, how to organize. It's a great learning experience. So those of you that are also looking to get involved in politics, learn how the ropes are, how things are done. It's a great way to volunteer if you're in Irvine or not, right? It's
exactly.
Yeah, except you have to be an American citizen to donate for Farah's campaign. That's I know somebody from Dubai donated for my campaign, and I had to give the money back because I'm like, are you a resident of
well, see, that's the thing. You can be a legal resident as well. You don't have to be a citizen, but you can be a legal resident to donate.
Right.
but just not from overseas.
Yeah.
And I also
And
put in my personal campaign email in case you guys want to reach out. Just don't email me about campaign at my official email, because then we
yes,
don't respond to
exactly.
those.
Do you have a website as well you want to share
I do.
for your campaign? So that would be good to have.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah.
I hope so.
And again, that's something, right? We separately, we keep that separate, campaign logistics and all
Very
of that stuff.
important.
But
Yeah.
yeah, very important, reporting in all of this. So Farah, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self after all these years?
My 16-year-old self, stop worrying, I guess. I think we worry so much when we're younger. And for me, I've gone through so many different changes in life that once you just let go and go with the flow, it just makes things a lot easier and you actually enjoy it. So stop worrying, things work out, and just keep working.
And so now, as you can see, I'm going back a little bit. So tell me, where were you born in Pakistan? And
I was
when
actually
did you
born
move to the US?
in Lahore.
Okay. And when did you move to the US?
I think I was about 3 when we moved, when actually my mom and I moved here. My dad's been here since the late 50s.
And you moved to the Bay Area, so?
We actually moved first to Chicago.
Okay.
And then my mom was like, there's no way I'm living where there's so much snow. And so then we ended up moving to San Francisco.
Okay. And you grew up in San Francisco and obviously went to Davis, and
yeah.
So and then your journey, and then you moved over to Irvine. And how did you move to Irvine? Was it family related? Was it work related?
No, my husband's business. So he was moving, he needed to move from Northern to Southern California. And so of course we moved along.
Yeah. So I don't know, I don't have any other questions. I think we've had, you've been truly an inspiration for all of us that have seen your campaign, that have seen you really, truly rise, like you mentioned, through failures and successes, and continue to persist and go on. And it's, it's been amazing. And obviously that partnership that I've had with you and being able to reach out to you on a minute's notice and saying, Farah, this is what we're dealing with here. And what are your thoughts there?
Yeah.
So another
That's
question
so important to have.
Yeah, yeah. Can Irvine be a sister city with a city in Pakistan?
Yeah, why not? That would be awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's something I'm trying to work on as well. So maybe something we can work on together.
Yes, that would be wonderful to do.
Yeah. Again, I think somebody said, what can we do to Farah to support her great work? And if anything else you would like to add to it, I know you already talked about it.
Campaign related, please go to my website. There'll be opportunities there. Otherwise, if it's official work related, just email me at my city address, and I'd be more than happy to let you know what's going on.
Yeah. And how else can Irvine residents get involved and engaged in local city stuff?
One of the best ways is to, when we have our events, is to just show up. For the first time this year, we had a Ramadan food drive. And so it was so important for me to do something because, again, the same type of celebration feeling wasn't there. And so I was like, all right, we have food banks that are struggling. Let's get the community together. And it was just such a fun event because I think we got more food donated that the food banks were just overwhelmed. They had like multiple trucks coming in to pick up the food, and it really showed what our community is capable of doing. I think we do really well when it comes to charitable things. I think we need to kind of shift a little bit to the politics side. It's do your charitable stuff, but at the same time, get involved in the political side as well, because there's a need there too.
Absolutely. And I think that that's very important to understand that, we give a lot of charity, we give a lot of money for schools in Pakistan, for, like you said, the food drives, a lot of these things, but so much of it happens at the table, right? So much of it doesn't even get talked about, but you get things done in the background just because now you're in the driving seat. And it's very, very important for our young, I mean, anybody, like you said, there's no age to getting involved, right? So
Right.
whether you're a young person, whether you're a mid-career person, or whether you're retired, I mean, generally, a lot of people in local politics are retired, and this is kind of their retirement thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's another important thing we don't talk about enough, I think. I mean, most of the council members that serve with me on council are retired, and they're doing this after having fulfilling jobs and retiring. So why not people who have retired now and have so much to give back, get them
Right.
involved in our local politics, on our committees, on our commissions, because the experience you bring, the life experience, the business experience, the work experience, are also important in giving back to our communities as well. So yeah, I think there's never too late to get involved in all of this, and it is very important for us, if we want to change those decisions. You just talked about the curriculum is huge. I mean, it'll have impact on our students and on our children for years to come. And for us not to have been part of this, and thank you, Farah, for really including people, in that, and really forming that committee where you reached out to everybody. It's something very important, and a lot of these things just go under the radar and nobody knows about it, and before we know it,
Right.
we're complaining about it. So if you ever find a reason to complain, get involved. I would
Exactly. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So somebody asked, non-residents can't contribute money, but they can contribute time. Yes, right. Yeah, they can contribute time, help out. So unless we have something else, I think we are good to wrap up. Anything, anybody, Pak Launch, Ali, anything, you guys want to add to this? Next session maybe that's coming up, and do we want to give a shout out to what people can join? Because I know you're doing a lot of sessions, you're building a lot of community, and pretty much have an event every weekend. So if there's something, okay, no next session, next weekend. But yes, continue to stay engaged. I think parklaunch.com is where it's all happening as well. And that's it from me. And thank you so much, Farah, for joining. I've really appreciated our conversation and really taking the time out to giving back to our community as well. And obviously doing everything you do for Irvine and the city of Irvine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Same here. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.